Hey, it's another Life Tree community update. The last one we did was back in August in Kansas City, Cheryl, as I recall.
Yes. And I think we used the scripture from 1 Peter chapter 5 about casting all your care on him, for he cares
yes.
about you.
Yeah, we did.
And there's sort of a theme that goes along with that. And so we want to do a little bit of an update today from Philippians chapter 4, which is also about anxiety and what you do with that. So why don't you lead us off here as to some of the things we've been doing since we came back, Fred?
That would be brilliant. By the way, if you're intrigued by the backdrop to this video, yes, we live in a lodge that has a thatched roof. And also, if we suddenly are taken up with the sniffles, it is southern spring here in South Africa, and there are a lot of allergies with tree pollen and grasses. So, hey, yeah, no, we've had a great time. We have been back nearly 6 weeks. It will be this Saturday. We got back into the swing of things in our 5 circles of influence, and one of them was our life group, which has continued on a Zoom basis. Another one was the opportunity to preach and help one of our churches out where we pastored some 20 years ago. So we took a trip down to my home province of KwaZulu-Natal and met with the gracious folks of Calvary Church of the Nazarene. And that was their first live in-person worship service in several months. Why? Well, South Africa's come out of the third spike COVID wave, which was the Delta variant, and that took about 4 months. So we're deeply grateful to the Lord. Other opportunities. Yeah.
Well, one of the exciting things for me is that I've been asked again to teach at Nazarene Theological College on a topic that I taught last year, just before COVID started. And I'm really glad to get to do it again with new students. And hopefully we won't have to go online as I did last year. So which reminds me of one of the verses that we've been reading here recently, and it just fell on the floor. And that was a devotional we read here recently on Joseph.
Wow.
And it's from Genesis, and it
Yes.
said that the Lord was with Joseph and treated him kindly. And I find that that's very challenging and exciting to know that the kindness of God extends to what we love doing. And to be honest, I love teaching. So I've been teaching now, I think, 3 or 4 weeks, and I have 7 students, and I am learning a lot from them. But why don't we talk a little bit about life group, especially last night's life group?
I enjoy the fact that you're back teaching, by the way, and I know that you are finding fresh and innovative, creative ways to be teaching those students. It's a course you have taught before, but you've learned from your previous time, and you're getting some great feedback already, so I'm proud of you. Yeah, Life Group has always plumbed the depths. It's authentic, it's real, people are vulnerable and honest about their journey and where they are. And both in person, when we met for seasons 1 through 3, and now 4 is essentially a digital platform, we're experiencing very similar, and it's humbling because there's a vulnerability to it. As those who facilitate it, we may be reading up, we may be looking at commentaries, we may be reading some background to the scripture passage, and we have been in Philippians, and just most recently in Philippians 4. It happened last night. In fact, we read verses 1 through 9. And those dynamics came to light again, didn't they, Cheryl?
Right. And we're so grateful for Zoom that Life Group has been able to continue as a result of Zoom. But last night was, again, just phenomenal. It wasn't without its challenges, because as we were starting the Zoom conference, you could hear the thunder in the background just rolling. And the group that met last night, one family lives quite far from us, and they said the thunder was rolling out in their neck of the woods as
40
well.
miles away.
So we started in by reading Philippians 4, 1 through 9. And of course it's a passage many of us are familiar with. And right away, though, as we began to ask some questions, it took a while for all of us to maybe begin to interact with the scripture. And,
Yeah. What are some takeouts from that?
well, I'm glad you asked. At the end of every time together, I always write down the takeouts. And to be honest, I'm just going to look up on my WhatsApp, because one of the takeouts had to do with verses 6 and 7, which is to tell God what you need. Don't be anxious. Just tell God what you need, and then thank Him for all He has done, and then you will experience God's peace. And to be honest, all of us that met last night have had moments where we wanted to ask the question. Well, we asked the question, well, what kind of peace are we talking about? But one of the things that was just, to me, because I had been struggling with something that I was praying about, and there were just moments where I felt like my heart was sinking when I thought, oh my goodness, I'm not sure I'm going to be really happy with the answer to
And what specifically
this
was
prayer.
that? I mean, just broad brushstrokes.
Well, it has to do with our children who live in Kansas City. Is that what you're referring to?
Right.
And they're in the midst of selling their home and relocating to Las Vegas and taking on the pastorate of Las Vegas First Church. And, you know, as with any sale of any house, you want to get the best deal.
Right.
And the WhatsApp out of Monday was anxiety producing for me. But we said to our daughter-in-law and to our son, we'll be praying. Well, here we are in Philippians chapter 4, and it says, pray. You know, when you're anxious, pray. And then when you pray, let it go, and God will give you peace. And I was like, I don't get that. And one of the other members on the group was saying, well, I'm not sure. When I go to pray, I kneel down and I ask God, but I realize my expectation is I want Him to answer this prayer my way. And so one of the members, I just loved it. It just made me, when I woke up this morning, it made me giggle, because she said, well, this verse to me is present your request to God and then let it go. You've given it to God. Don't give it to God and ask Him to answer it the way you think it needs to be answered. Just let it go. And that's when peace happens. You don't wait for the answer to prayer before peace is given. And
Yeah, those are great reminders. I mean, just for us personally too, I was thinking it was about July 20, about 2 months ago, a little over 2 months ago, that we had to make the decision about extending our stay in the States due to the COVID surge that was going on here. And sadly, there were fatalities as well as serious illnesses due to the COVID spike, and people that we know as well were impacted. And then as we returned, we've dealt with various issues that we do just in the course of living. One of them has been issues with the car. Our vehicle's 8 years old, but it's been really reliable and just an amazing vehicle for us, both for us personally, but also enabling us to be able to travel and be involved on mission with Lifetree Community. And as a result of that, we ended up with, 4 new tires and a new set of brake pads, and most recently a new CV joint on the left front side, which turned out to be the
male side of
it's a male
I didn't
part.
know that there were male parts and female parts
Yeah, we learned something new.
in the car.
And just a word of thanks again to those who are supporting and have been giving generously in steady ways, month to month, or who heard us speak recently in the States and gave very, very generously as well. That has helped us not only to repair the car, but to be prepared for living expenses over the next 6 months. A good deal of our fixed expenses, including our rental in this small one-bedroom apartment, is taken care of, and we're deeply grateful to the Lord for that. So just to let you know that.
So this morning when I woke up thinking about this, all of these expenses sort of happened this week,
Yeah.
and then we looked at the scripture this week, and
Yes.
actually our son, we watched him preach on Sunday. It was about prayer, so that happened this week there, and it was all about Thanksgiving. I wrote this WhatsApp to the young person on our life group who just, what she said about praying, letting go, peace comes before you know the answer. I said to her, thanks so much for your take on present your prayers, which is present them, let them go, then peace comes. Then I read from the New Living Translation, tell God what you need, thank Him for all that He has done. Then you will experience God's peace. So I slept well, and this morning I heard that our kids had accepted an offer on their home. And then I said to her, it just makes me giggle, like God is saying, see, didn't Bongi and I have it right? Well, to me, it's like in community, that is really what happens, is when you hear the voice of the Spirit through the lips of somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so grateful that God has said,
Yes.
listen and do, and then God will really work on your behalf. Bongi answered and she said, it was such a revelation for me. I have read and memorized that scripture, but I never saw it that way until yesterday when we looked at it in group. So thanks
for
again.
joining us today and in this video, and whenever you may watch it. The Lord bless you richly, and we look forward to being in touch in social media or through our e-newsletter, which we plan to get out in the next day or two. Thanks.
God
And
bless.
God bless you guys. Bye-bye.